In the quiet corners of the world's grandest institutions, there are people we pass by every day, people whose names we never learn, whose voices we never hear. But sometimes, hidden behind an apron and a tired smile, is a story that defies every expectation. This is not a story about revenge. This is not a story about anger. It's about brilliance overlooked, dignity preserved, and the quiet strength of a woman who once chose love over glory. Until one morning, when the world finally listened. And what happened next? Left an entire university stunned, humbled, and forever changed. At precisely 7:14 a.m., the scent of burnt toast and reheated coffee drifted through the tiled corridors of one of the most prestigious universities on the East Coast. Inside the cafeteria, beneath humming fluorescents and the clatter of trays, a woman moved quietly, like a rhythm too subtle to notice. Her name was Miss Evelyn. She wore the same crisp white uniform she'd worn for nearly a decade. Hair tucked neatly under her high rep, sleeves rolled just enough to keep from getting in the way. Every movement was practiced. Efficient. Invisible. She refilled the napkin dispensers. She wiped down the same tables. She offered soft good mornings to students who rarely looked up. To them she was part of the background. Like the old coffee machine in the corner, always there, always running, never truly seen. But Evelyn watched. Always. Not with resentment or envy, but with quiet curiosity. Her eyes followed conversations between professors. Her ears caught snippets of academic debates the way others might follow sports scores. She had learned over time how to disappear in plain sight. And on that particular morning, when a group of math professors sat at their usual table, voices raised, papers strewn across trays, theories being torn apart and reassembled, Miss Evelyn moved just a little closer. Not obviously. Just close enough to hear. "It fails at the third cycle," one of them muttered. "Even with the logarithmic compensation, the algorithm breaks." Another chimed in, sharp and frustrated. "The problem's not technical. It's structural." Evelyn paused. Just for a second. Her eyes scanned the symbols and scribbles scrawled on a page left open beside a coffee cup. And somewhere in the back of her mind, in the quiet corner where old rhythms still lived, something clicked. A beat. A breath. And then, softly, more to herself than anyone else. "If the matrix is degenerate, why not just invert the vector in R4? The words barely crossed her lips. But one of the professors turned. "Excuse me?" he asked, eyebrows raised. Evelyn looked down quickly. "Sorry? I was just thinking out loud." He gave a polite but condescending smirk. "Well, looks like we've got a linear algebra expert in the kitchen." A few of them chuckled, not cruelly but casually. The way people do when the idea of you belonging in their world feels laughably impossible. Evelyn offered a faint smile, bowed her head, and quietly walked away. But deep inside, something ancient stirred, like a note from a forgotten song. Something that would not stay silent for long. The sun had dipped lower by the time Miss Evelyn returned home. Her apartment was modest, tucked above a shuttered bakery on a quiet street few students would ever wander. Inside, everything was carefully kept, orderly, simple, and still. She placed her apron over the back of a chair, the same way she always did, then sat down at the small wooden table by the window. The overhead light flickered once, then steadied. She didn't turn on the television. She didn't check her phone. Instead, she reached for something she hadn't touched in years, a spiral-bound notebook tucked between old cookbooks on the shelf. Its cover was faded, corners softened by time. But the sticker on the front still clung stubbornly. MIT, class of '84. Her fingers paused there. Just for a moment. Then she opened it. Page after page of formulas greeted her, elegant, precise, alive with memory. Some handwritten in ink, others scratched hastily in pencil. Complex structures of thought. Maps of a world she once belonged to. A world she had left behind not because she failed, but because life demanded something else of her. She had been 19 when she published her first paper. 20 when she was invited to speak in Vienna. A rising star in mathematical theory. The kind of brilliance that filled lecture halls with standing ovations. Professors called her the future of the field. But that same year a phone call changed everything. Her mother, once so sharp, so spirited, was diagnosed with rapid-onset Alzheimer's. Evelyn's father had passed when she was 12. There was no one else. The choice was hers. Formulas or family. Most people praised her potential. Few understood her decision. "You can come back later," they said. "There will always be time." But Alzheimer's doesn't wait. It erodes. Quietly. Mercilessly. 7 years. That's how long Evelyn stayed by her mother's side. Until the very end. By then the academic world had moved on. The journal stopped calling. Her name, once spoken with admiration, became a footnote, then a ghost. And now, all these years later, she sat at her table, surrounded by silence and memory. She turned to the last blank page of the notebook. Not with bitterness. Not with regret. But with the same quiet certainty that once made her fearless. She picked up a pen and began to write. Slowly at first, then more fluidly, like a song remembered in fragments. One line. Then another. Each mark on the page a reclamation. Not of status, not of recognition, but of self. It was always there, she whispered to no one. Then she closed the notebook. And for the first time in a very long time she smiled, not for others but for herself. The next morning the university campus stirred to life as usual, coffee carts rattling down brick paths, students rushing to early lectures, professors locked in their rituals of routine and intellect. But in the mathematics department, something quietly strange was about to happen. At precisely 6:42 a.m., before the secretaries had arrived, a small envelope was slipped under the office door of Professor Jonathan Harris. No note. No fanfare. Just a plain, cream-colored envelope. On its front, handwritten in deliberate ink. To the Department of Mathematics. From E.L. Booker. It sat untouched for over an hour. When Harris finally arrived, coffee in one hand, shoulder weighed by a laptop bag, he almost missed it. He bent down, furrowed his brow, and turned the envelope over once, then twice. Curious but not cautious. Inside, a single sheet of paper. 5 lines. Plain. Precise. Deceptively simple. And at the bottom, again. E.L. Booker. At first he laughed. Another crank submission, he muttered. But then something caught him. The structure, the notation, the uncanny familiarity. His eyes narrowed. He dropped into his chair, set the coffee aside, and stared harder. No crossed-out thoughts. No wandering logic. Every symbol lived exactly where it needed to be. He leaned back slowly. Then forward again. No way. By 9:15 a.m., the paper had made its way down the hall. Dr. Kim. Dr. Morales. 2 teaching assistants. A visiting scholar. One by one they gathered around the copy machine, then around the original. Notebooks opened. Calculators came out. Someone grabbed a whiteboard marker but never touched the board. Because none of them could improve upon it. Because none of them could understand how it had been done. This is elegant. But it's impossible. Who is E.L. Booker? Questions spiraled. Speculations bloomed. Was it a visiting genius? A recluse? An AI-generated prank? But no one laughed this time. Not even a little. This wasn't guesswork. This was mastery. And somewhere at the far end of campus, Miss Evelyn quietly wiped down the same tables as always. Her uniform neatly pressed. Her name tag slightly crooked. Her notebook locked away once more. She said nothing. She needed no audience. The equation had been given. The rest was up to them. By noon the envelope had become legend. The 5-line solution now hung in the department lounge, photocopied and pinned beneath a note. Who is E.L. Booker? Theories buzzed across campus like wildfire. Students whispered in lecture halls. Faculty emails lit up with speculation. Some believed it was a retired mathematician using a pseudonym. Others insisted it was a practical joke, an elegant forgery. But Professor Harris wasn't laughing. He was searching. That afternoon he dug into the university's archive system. Keyword, Booker. Then E.L. Booker. The database flickered and one entry appeared. Evelyn Louise Booker. MIT, class of 1984. Top of her cohort. Published in 3 major journals by age 20. Then, nothing. That's impossible, he murmured. How have we never heard of her? He clicked the attached photo. And froze. Because there, in black and white, was a young woman with soft eyes and the unmistakable gaze of someone who saw the world in patterns. And though decades had passed, the resemblance was undeniable. No, it can't be. That evening as he walked through the cafeteria with his tray he really looked, for the first time. And there she was. The woman he had passed by 100 times. The woman who had poured his coffee. The woman who had been invisible, until now. Miss Evelyn. E.L. Booker. It took 3 invitations before she said yes. No cameras. No interviews. No questions about the equation. Just listen, she told them. That's all I ask. In a quiet office lined with dusty shelves and half-empty coffee cups, Evelyn sat across from Professors Harris, Morales, and Kim. No apron today. Just a simple navy blouse. Her spiral notebook rested gently on the table, unopened. She didn't clear her throat. She didn't search for the right words. She simply began. My name is Evelyn Louise Booker. I graduated from MIT in 1984, top of my class. I loved math not for the praise but for the music of it, for the way it made silence feel full. She paused not for effect but for memory. That same year my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I had to choose, publish or care. And I chose to stay. Because sometimes, love isn't a detour. It's the answer. No one spoke. No one dared. Evelyn looked up, eyes calm but steady. I didn't stop being a mathematician. I just stopped being seen. And for the first time the scholars in that room, trained to see patterns and proofs, finally saw a person they had overlooked for far too long. The next morning Miss Evelyn walked into the cafeteria, just like always. Same white uniform. Same quiet steps. But the room was not the same. It was silent. Students stood. Staff stood. Professors stood. And then, slowly, applause. Not the kind that fills stadiums. The kind that fills hearts. A young black student with braids stepped forward, voice trembling. Miss Evelyn. Today you don't serve anyone. We're here to honor you. Evelyn froze, dishcloth in hand, breath caught between disbelief and grace. A small smile formed, half joy, half awe. Later that afternoon the university made it official. A new scholarship. The Evelyn Booker Fellowship for Hidden Excellence. And more than that, an invitation. Would she speak? At first she declined. On the third request she accepted. But I won't speak about formulas, she said. You have enough people for that. I'll speak about the one thing you keep forgetting. How to listen. The auditorium was full, shoulder to shoulder. Students, faculty, custodians, kitchen staff. For some, it was the first time they'd ever stepped foot in that room. The lights dimmed. No spotlight. No music. Just Evelyn. She walked to the podium wearing a simple dark blue dress, her old spiral notebook held close to her chest. She paused, looked out, not with pride but with purpose. Good afternoon, she began. My name is Evelyn Louise Booker. I've served coffee to many of you, cleaned your tables, watched you laugh, and ignore me. A murmur rippled through the crowd. She didn't flinch. But I'm not here to make you feel guilty. I'm here to remind you. Brilliance doesn't always shout. It doesn't always wear a name tag you recognize. She opened the notebook to the final page, the 5 lines. These weren't about solving a problem. They were about being seen. Then she closed it gently. You see me now. But how many Evelyns do you still walk past every day? Silence. Then, everyone stood. Not out of formality, but because they knew. This wasn't a lecture. It was a mirror. In a quiet corner of the cafeteria, the walls had changed. Where once hung only policies and schedules, now stood framed photos. Of students, of staff, of the everyday faces who make the university breathe. At the center, a portrait of a young woman holding her MIT medal. Below it in gold letters. Knowledge is knowing. Wisdom is listening. Evelyn L. Booker. She still wore the white kitchen shirt. By choice. It's comfortable, she said. And it reminds me where I come from. One morning, a nervous freshman approached her, eyes wide, notebook trembling in hand. Miss Evelyn. I wrote something. A theory. I'm not sure if it's any good. Evelyn smiled, opened the notebook and pointed to the first line. You see this? She whispered. This is the most important number. 1. The first step. The first time you dared to believe your voice mattered. Because that's where every breakthrough begins, not with applause, not with approval, but with the courage to be heard even when no one is listening. So, next time you pass someone who blends into the background, pause. Look again. The greatest mind in the room might just be wiping down the table beside you. This is such an amazing story. Dear friends, if you liked the video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. There is still a lot of interesting things to come.